Hey everyone, welcome back to the YouTube channel. I am Josh. You're watching the BlockRoots channel with me and my co-host partner, Karen Clark, who also creates videos. Always glad to have you guys watch. And so as far as that goes, a good show today. Just going to talk about why we could be in a potential uptrend here in another bull market, which of course that's naturally going to make you very excited. I know it's quite often that you see on YouTube and on Twitter people talking about 100K, $1 million Bitcoin to 50K this year, but we like to be as sound and practical as possible. So when we say that we think it's potentially in an uptrend, we really do mean that in all sincerity. And so it's not to make anybody bullish per se. It's not to change, your attitude currently on the market, but as there are always pullbacks, we are aware of that. It is important to share if we feel like we're in a good spot right now. So we'll talk about that. We're going to talk about the macro, kind of the viewpoint, the point of control with the volume profile. If you guys don't know what that is, I'll show you here in a minute. We'll talk about how that's played an important part in support with Bitcoin. We'll talk about the 200 daily moving average, the 3K bottom, and just kind of the similarities that we've seen right now. And so before we get started, the question is always, do you want to be somebody who takes advantage of the Bitcoin market, especially in the next bull trend, and very much especially in the next downtrend? Because if you're a holder, it's very difficult to make money on a downtrend, and so that's why we've created BlockRoots to help you understand a little bit more about markets and trading. Yes, I always share a little bit about BlockRoots when we create a video, but again, a lot of cool roadmaps. We've just added a lot of good stuff here, from entering and exiting an auction, order flow series, some of our bread and butter stuff here. So take a look at it. I don't think that you're going to find really anything else out there as good for the price point. Karen Clark, who does the education primarily with trading on BlockRoots, he's been in the game for over a decade, for 12 to 13 years. And again, you're not going to find that very often either on crypto Twitter or crypto YouTube. So again, check out BlockRoots. That is our website. And let's just go ahead and talk about Bitcoin. As always, do your own research. Nothing is financial advice. Always important to say that. And so let's go ahead and talk about why we think that it's still a good time to buy Bitcoin, okay? And so in my opinion, you do what you want to do. We don't want to, change your mind in any way. Bitcoin is an expensive asset at $9,000 almost. That's a lot of money for a lot of people, okay? And so for you just to go and not do your research and just go out and spend $9,000, especially without talking to your family or whoever, right, that you share that account with, it's going to be a bad decision. So always, do your research. But again, yeah, we think that it's a good time to buy Bitcoin. Why do we think that specifically? Well, if you look at the macro, the big range here, back in 2017, 2018, this is actually playing an important role when it comes to support in the future, up into 2019, 2020. And so if you take a look at the range, you're going to see that the volume profile, and a volume profile, again, basically, if you don't understand it, these lines right here, it just really shows you where at what price point was the highest volume as far as trading, okay, buying and selling. And so that typically shows supply and demand. That usually shows a peak of interest in the place that's called the point of control, okay? And so as far as the point of control, you're going to see this line that goes across the page here. You're going to notice that at the point of control was the breakdown of Bitcoin, right? It capitulated, it came back up, it broke above that point of control. But when we had Bitcoin break down, notice that back last May, it bounced right off, went up, and continued up to $13,000, right? Almost $14,000. Well, as we continue to go on into 2019, you're going to notice that that same area, the same point of control, the same major interest area has also acted as support at the local bottom here, okay, around 6,400 or so. So Bitcoin price bounced off of this, and ever since then, it's went up, kind of pulled back a little bit, and it has continued to go up as far as potentially a reversal. Could that be the bottom? I think when it comes down to it, when you're talking about big money here, Karen Clark has talked about this as well. They look at the overall structure of a market. And so when you look at the overall structure of a market like this, they're going to notice that this main support area, primarily the point of control, right, has played as a major support. And that is typically an area where somebody is just going to look at that and they're going to want to buy in potentially, right? Because we did not break below this. We bounced off of it pretty good. And it is a very good sign that very likely that is where the local bottom is in. And really, I don't really foresee this changing anytime soon. Now, what else can we look at here? Well, if you actually scroll in, right? One major thing that people like to do is trend lines. We don't like to trade trend lines because, as I always say, trend lines are meant to be broken, but they also will really show you, typically when potential reversals, if you go and you go ahead and put the trend line at the very tops of this downtrend right here, typically where some of the most high volume selling is at, right? You're going to notice that Bitcoin price kind of rejected off that after the last push up here from 8,000 to around 8,800, broke back down but pushed back above it, and look what happens now. If you even scroll into it, you're going to notice that price has rejected back off that trend line. Now, another thing that we can do as well, besides the top of the wicks here, we can also take the candle bodies here. And a lot of times, of course, we like to go and go down as far as on the time frames, okay? And so, trend lines are highly subjective, but if you're looking for some confluence here from the wicks and just kind of moving down, just showing the body's not able to cross up over the trend line as well. If you want to use this one as well, what you can see is that we broke down, and of course, once Bitcoin broke above this trend line, it came back down, actually retested off this area, and bounced rather aggressively off and has continued up. So regardless if you're a fan of trend lines or not, and regardless of how you draw them, you can't deny that it seems like we have broke above this downtrend, okay, and that we have reversed. Whether you want to put it up there or whether you want to move it up here, right? So regardless of what you want to do, that is also somewhat of a bullish perspective. So, okay, Josh, that looks great and all. We seem to broke the trend line. Is there anything else that we can talk about as far as a reversal here? Well, one thing that you can certainly look at, and I know a lot of people right now on the 1-day chart, right? We're all looking at the 200 daily moving average. Now, the great thing about this is if you look at the past history, you can actually go to the Brave New Coin past history here of all of Bitcoin. If you don't know this, it's the BLX, or you can type in Brave New Coin on TradingView, and it's a beautiful chart because it shows you all the way back history from the beginning, 2010. And so most exchanges weren't around back then, and because of that, you can't see the full picture of Bitcoin, but on this chart you can. And so again, you're going to notice that typically once 200 daily moving average price breaks above it, at least the last couple of trends here, right, price tends to stay above it. And unless we're in a downtrend, and of course we broke above it on the way back up last March and April, on the way up to 14,000. We went back down, but again, we're about to test off of it again. And once we break above that, typically that is seen as a bullish sign as well for most people. So on the daily 200-day moving averages. Now outside of that, if you want to go ahead and just look and just put up on all high time frames, whether it's the daily or even if you want to look at the weekly, etc. But basically on the daily, outside the 200 daily moving average, you're going to notice that, what do you see here? You're going to notice that there has been a trend change when it comes to the moving averages. Well, what's going on? Well, you're going to notice that they're all starting to curve up. And so when we know that when moving averages tend to curve up, the beautiful thing about a moving average is that it tends to signal trend reversals, right? A lot of times. And it shows that, and price tends to follow and bounce off those on a trend up. You're going to notice on the last uptrend back last year in early 2019, as Bitcoin, right, started to break above these moving averages, it stayed well above them on the way up. Okay, and of course, wicked down and went below a little bit on pullbacks. But for the most part, we stayed above the higher time moving averages. So again, 200, 150, etc., 20. But also too on the downtrend, you're going to notice that price went below it. But finally, for the first time since here around August, you're going to see that most of the moving averages here, if not all of them, are changing from bearish downward to neutral or up. And so again, whenever we see that, that tends to be a really good sign that we have a trend reversal. And so a few things to kind of overview again. We've got the point of control here for the major macro range of Bitcoin throughout a couple of years here, from the all-time high to the capitulation, the highest volume traded, which is typically a major point of supply-demand interest here. We saw price bounce off that multiple times during 2019. And so we've seen the trend change as far as the moving averages as well. We see the trend line as far as that being broken above for price. So there are multiple things here that are showing us on the technical analysis that, hey, look, this is a potential trend change, and this is here to stay, okay? And so if you also look too, if I were to clear off my charts here, and I go to a little bit more of a mid or lower time frame, this is the 8 hour. But again, the capitulation back at the last low at 3,000, right? It went down, price bounced up, kind of came back down for a low, and then slowly moved up with the push up from there. And that's the, for the next 3 months, we went straight up to 13K. I would say that after the 42% move, it was somewhat of a capitulation, at least down to a low. Of course, we had the bounce. Back up, and of course the down again similar, and then slowly move up. The capitulation or the downward price, the hard aggressive selling here lasted only about a half or a third of the time that this did. And of course, this was from November all the way to late March or April. Well, this was only from November to the beginning of January. So again, about a third to a half of the time of the previous bottom. Of course, the time is going a little bit faster here with this bottom. There's a similar upward grinding pattern. Notice that we're just continuing to have higher lows, right? Just like this, like the move up, it just kind of grinded up, kind of some pullbacks, grinded up, and just continue to push up. We're kind of seeing this pullback, grind up, push up again, kind of grinding or slow momentum up, right, with the price. It just seems like a lot more people are looking to buy here instead of sell and take profit. Can it pull back? Yeah, certainly. I think it can. I think one of the major points to look at, right, if we were to go ahead and take a horizontal line is this area, right, where price rejected off before and can kind of continue up. That was that trend line again. But as far as the previous range low right here, right, that was around 7,700. We noticed that price broke above that, came back down and retested and moved up. If we have price come back down and break below this and back into this range, okay, that's a little bit more bearish. We could probably see a retest at the low and maybe lower. I don't think that's going to happen. I do believe that as long as we can stay above this 7,700 range, out of the previous low range, that we're good to go. We're going to continue up. We do have some decent support here around 82 to 8,300. So this cluster right here around 8,250, 8,300. I think that if it does pull back, it pulls back to this low area, but then it bounces from here and continues on up. So what's next? Again, of course, if you want to continue to look at this chart, the next area to break is this high, right? And so we've got, depending on the chart that you look at, 9,400 to 9,600. If we were to take the volume profile, this is the visible range. You're going to notice that, yeah, this is the area that we want to break above, potentially 10,100. Again, we'll talk about that. But this is the first area to break right here. I think once we can break above this area, then we're going to get a higher. We're going to get a higher high, right? We're going to start to break that trend, and people are going to see that. And then where we're going to go is where I showed before on a tweet. You're going to notice that this area around 10,100 is the area that we want to break, because from the last range in 2019, that was actually the point of control, okay? From that range from June all the way to September, we noticed that that's prior to the capitulation. Just like we saw back in 2018, 2017, we saw the point of control really land as support and then break down below that. And then that is, again, the prime area where price bounced off as support. Well, I think we're going to see the same thing here. We're going to see that the point of control on this range from 2019, where it broke down and capitulated from there, is going to act maybe possibly as a resistance at first. then we're going to break above it. And this is an example that I showed on Twitter, is that I don't necessarily think that the price is going to do exactly this. I just wanted to show an example of what I think price can do, similar to before. And I think that price can actually come back down. We can hit high, maybe even new highs for the past 2 years since back in 2018. But I think it could potentially come back down in the low 10,000s if we break above this. That should act as support, maybe a wick below, and then it should continue on up for an uptrend. So again, I do believe that this is an important place. I do believe if you look at the chart here, you're going to notice that will play a major role. So I went ahead and just mark that. And if I go ahead and just mark it off like that, right, this is the area where we want to break above eventually when it comes to Bitcoin, and to continue on from there. That is the point of control. And so again, a lot of good things, right? We see that the moving averages, the trend line break, we saw that bounce off the point of the major macro point of control back from the previous range that lasted over a year, right? So these are all really bullish signs, not to mention the way we're moving up is very similar to the previous low, where we're just kind of grinding up a big, candle at a $200 to $300 to $400 at a time, then grinding up, then another candle. I do expect pullbacks here and there, but again, this is definitely a good sign that we're on an uptrend. So if you're looking to buy right now, again, as I talked about earlier, I think it's a great time. It's always a great time to buy Bitcoin, except at the peak highs, right? Or the cycle highs. You definitely don't want to buy then. You want to short and then accumulate more. But if you're bullish on Bitcoin and you want to buy, certainly one thing that you can do is, if you don't know yet, I am a advisor for Level Exchange. Now, what Level Exchange is basically, it's one of the first, if not the first exchange to have no fees. How does Level make money? Well, it's a $9 a month membership. And the cool thing about it is that I just sold a Bitcoin on Coinbase and had to pay, over $100 to sell that Bitcoin. If I want to buy a Bitcoin, I'm going to have to pay over $100 to do that, especially on Gemini. So if you use Coinbase or Gemini and you're actually in any of these states right here, California, Colorado, Illinois, Indiana, Massachusetts, Missouri, the list goes on. If you're in Canada, or if you're in almost any European country and you're watching this, you can actually join Level today. It's available. And the month that you join, which it's free until February 1st, you don't have to pay the $9. You don't pay it until February. Totally free. All you have to do is pay $9 a month, and you're going to end up saving hundreds, if not $1,000 a year on fees, on trading fees. You can trade as much as you want. And the cool thing, too, is there's going to be a debit card as well as checking account that's FDIC insured as well, coming up in the end of Q1, Q2. All the regulatory paperwork has been finished. And again, as always, I share with people that I am an advisor on the team here. So you're going to see me on the page, always open with the head team there with Chris and Courtney and Brandon, and then Willie Woo, Jimmy Song, and here I am here in the suit and tie, right? So as an advisor on this team, and so we just want to make sure that people have a fantastic experience when it comes to buying and selling Bitcoin, Ethereum, or altcoins. And to do that, really, you want to cut the fees, because fees really take advantage of people. And so we want to do that. We want to save people hundreds of dollars. And I think that you guys know that. As for myself, Willie and Jimmy, we're all very ethical, and we take this seriously. So again, if you're not a part of Level, go ahead and check that out and join that. I will leave the link below because it's invite only. Basically, it's level.co/BlockRoots. And if you do that, you're going to notice that it's going to change pink, and then you can sign up. And like I said, it's only $9 a month, and you save hundreds of bucks. So check out Level. As far as that goes, I was going to talk about altcoins, but I'm not going to do that because the time has already been too long for today. But I'll go ahead and talk about altcoins later this week, what you want to take a look at. As far as Bitcoin, again, it looks like some good signs here that we're on the uptrend. And so if you do have any questions, just let us know. Always feel free to like and share the video. Would love to have you as a subscriber. So make sure that you go down to the red box, click subscribe. So that way you can get notifications when we post a new video. So with that said, I am Josh from BlockRoots. Hope you guys have a great week or weekend. Wherever you are in the world, trade effectively and safe.